in a freak accident. A brick had fallen from a building as he'd been walking past on his way to the bank and struck him on the head. It was mortifying to remember that her initial reaction had been to laugh. She'd been convinced it was a joke, because normal people didn't get killed by random bricks falling from buildings, did they? But then she'd realized they weren't laughing, and it probably wasn't because they didn't have a sense of humor. She'd asked them if they were sure he was dead, and then had to apologize for questioning them because of course they were sure. How often did the police follow, "We're sorry to have to tell you," with, "Oops, we made a mistake"? After they'd repeated the bad news, she'd thanked them politely. Then she'd made them a cup of tea because she was A, half British, and B, very much in shock. When they'd drunk their tea and eaten 2 of her homemade cinnamon cookies, she'd shown them out as if they were treasured guests who had honored her with their presence, and not people who had just shattered her world in one short conversation. She'd stared at the closed door for a full 5 minutes after they'd left while she'd tried to process it. In a matter of minutes, her life had utterly changed. The future she'd planned with Brent stolen. Her hopes crushed. Even though 2 years had passed, there were still days when it felt unreal. Days when she still expected Brent to walk through the door with that bouncing stride of his, full of excitement because he'd had one of his brilliant ideas that he couldn't wait to share with her. "I think we should get married. I think we should start a family. I think we should buy that historic inn we saw on our trip to Vermont." They'd met in England during their final year of college, and from the first moment she'd been swept away on the tide of Brent's enthusiasm. After graduating, they'd both taken jobs in London, but then 2 things had happened. Brent's grandmother had died, leaving him a generous sum of money, and they'd taken a trip to Vermont. They'd fallen in love with the place, and now, here she was, a widow at the age of 28, raising their 5-year-old child and managing the historic inn. Alone. Since she'd lost Brent, she'd try to keep everything going the way he'd wanted it, but that wasn't proving easy. She worried that she wasn't able to do this on her own. She worried that she was going to lose the inn. Most of all, she worried that she wasn't going to be enough for their daughter. Now Brent was gone, she had to be 2 people. How could she be 2 people when most days she didn't even feel whole? She realized that while she'd been indulging in a moment of maudlin self-pity, the woman on the phone was still talking. "I'm sorry, could you say that again?" "I'd like the bedsheets to be linen, because I do struggle with overheating." "We have linen bedding, so that won't be a problem." "And pink." "Excuse me? I'd like the linen to be pink. I find I sleep better. White is too glaring and drab colors depress me." "Pink. I'll make a note." She grabbed a notepad and scribbled, "Help," followed by 4 exclamation marks. She might have written something ruder, but her daughter was a remarkably good reader and was given to demonstrating that skill wherever and whenever she could, so Hattie had learned to be mindful of what she wrote and left lying around. "Did you have a particular date in mind?" "Christmas. It's the best time, isn't it?" Not for me, Hattie thought, as she checked the room occupancy. The first Christmas after Brent had died had been hideous, and last year hadn't been much better. She'd wanted to burrow under the covers until it was all over, but instead, she'd been expected to inject festive joy into other people's lives. And now it was the end of November again, and Christmas was just weeks away. Still, providing she didn't lose any more staff, she'd no doubt find a way to muddle through. She'd survived it twice, and she'd survive it a 3rd time. "You're in luck. We do still have a few rooms available, including 1 double facing the mountains. Would you like me to reserve that for you?" "Is it a corner room? I do like more than 1 window." "It's not a corner room, and there's only 1 window in this particular room, but it has wonderful views and a covered balcony." "There's no way of getting a 2nd window?"